Think of opening the door to all the accumulated knowledge of the ancient world in one building. Medicine books, astronomy, math, philosophy, history, and revelations unseen again for centuries. That was Alexandria. During the early Ptolemaic period, the rulers of Egypt began converting Alexandria into one of the most outstanding centers of learning in the ancient world. Scholars were invited from across the Mediterranean region. Books were gathered, texts were copied, and knowledge was systematized on a scale that the ancient world had seldom witnessed. The Library of Alexandria was incorporated into a broader intellectual establishment called the Mouseion. It was investigators of the natural world. They worked out the size of the earth, mapped the stars, took medicine, interpreted ancient texts, and grappled with questions that continue to challenge scientists. The collection expanded and grew. Some ancient accounts speak of a vast number of scrolls, but the exact size of the library remains unknown. What can be said for certain? What is undeniable, Alexandria had become a beacon of knowledge unlike, well, pretty much anything that preceded it. For generations, scholars came to the city in search of answers. But then, the political landscape in and around Alexandria started to shift, and the organization that had appeared to be almost unstoppable beginning to wane. By the 2nd century BC, the library was no longer receiving the same level of royal patronage. Alexandria was subject to political turmoil. Austrian scholars were expelled, and intellectually it had the hints of losing prestige it once had. Then, in 48 BC, during his war against the forces of Ptolemy XIII, Julius Caesar came to Alexandria. Rioting broke out at the harbor. Caesar commanded the Egyptian vessels to be burnt. The blaze spread. The vicinity of the waterfront buildings were hurt. And someplace in the middle of all this chaos were manuscripts burned for hundreds of years. This would become the most famous account of why the Library of Alexandria vanished. It was a straightforward tale, no frills, no Lord of the Rings. Caesar began the fire. The library was ablaze, and millennia of knowledge disappeared in a single disaster. But it's never that easy in history. It is clear from the evidence that, following the death of Caesar, the library, or some equivalent of it, survived. The later kings continued to patronize the intellectual life of Alexandria, and parts of the city were still apparently active enough in ancient times for ancient writers to describe learned activity there. So, if not for Caesar destroying the entire library, what become of it? It could have taken centuries to find the answer. Alexandria experienced wars, political upheaval, economic decline, and eventually, religious conflict. In 391 AD, the Serapeum, a great pagan temple which, as we have seen, had accommodated the library's collection in part, was demolished in the course of religious disturbances. But there is no firm evidence that the great library itself was destroyed on that occasion. Instead, Alexandria's classical intellectual climate seems to have vanished slowly. And maybe that's the biggest mystery of all. For centuries, people looked for somebody to blame. Some blamed Julius Caesar. Others blamed Christian authorities. Later stories blamed Arab conquerors. But the historical record is more complex. The famous account that Arab armies destroyed the library in the 7th century is a late invention. Yet modern historians dismiss that narrative. When Alexandria was captured by the Arabs, the Great Library of Antiquity was almost certainly not functioning as the legendary establishment portrayed in popular accounts. So perhaps it was never won last night. No single fire. There is no one enemy. There is no day in history where the greatest library in the world suddenly went up in flames. Rather, it may have been a gradual decline. Royal patronage faltered. Intellectuals departed. Wars ravaged the city. Buildings were razed. Collections were disbanded. And these manuscripts were copied, shuffled, and even lost. The disaster may not have been a single gigantic fire, but centuries of gradual erosion. And that raises another question. How much knowledge was really lost? We will never know. Written by the ages and host of appalling disasters, many sage have been lost. Ancient works by numerous writers have perished. Systematic recordings had vanished. Historical narratives exist only in pieces. Entire books are cited by name or known today only because later writers orally relayed from them a few lines. Some concepts may have been rediscovered centuries later. Others, it may be forever lost. Today, when modern Alexandria is built on the foundations of both the Roman and ancient city, the legendary library is dead. Yet the enigma persists. Was it burned too? Was war just the completion of neglect's work? War destroyed what they were left with? Or did the library merely wither on the vine? One scroll at a time? Chwakova. Maybe the most chilling possibility is this. The greatest library of the ancient world may not have died in a single moment. It might have vanished so gradually that none of us could tell we were waking up. And somewhere under the modern Alexandria, the last remnants of that bygone era may still be lurking, buried beneath the city, lost under the ages, forgotten beneath the centuries, and silent just under 2,000 years.